She humiliated my daughter in front of everyone. But she didn't realize the quiet father she mocked was about to destroy her entire empire. Chapter 1. The day my daughter was humiliated. The afternoon sun poured through the tall glass windows of Bright Star Mall, one of the most luxurious shopping centers in the city. Expensive boutiques lined the polished floors, and elegant shoppers moved through the halls with quiet confidence. But in the middle of the lobby, a small crowd had gathered, and at the center of that crowd was a little girl on her knees. 7-year-old Emma trembled as she knelt on the cold marble floor. Her tiny hands clutched the strap of her worn backpack, and tears streamed silently down her cheeks. I said I'm sorry, she whispered. Standing in front of her was a sharply dressed woman in high heels and a designer suit. Her name was Vanessa Cole, the powerful assistant to Sophia Lancaster, the CEO of Lancaster Group, the most influential business empire in the city. Vanessa crossed her arms, her lips curling into a cold smile. Sorry? She scoffed. Your apology doesn't fix a ruined dress. Behind her, a young woman in an expensive white outfit stood glaring at Emma. The hem of her designer dress had a faint stain, where Emma had accidentally spilled a cup of juice. You know how much this dress costs? The woman snapped. Emma shook her head weakly. Vanessa's voice turned sharp. Then you should learn your place. When someone like you ruins something valuable, you kneel and apologize properly. The crowd murmured uncomfortably, but no one stepped forward. Everyone knew Vanessa's reputation. She represented Lancaster Group, and offending her robbed your business, sometimes even your future. Emma's knees hurt from the hard marble floor. Her small shoulders trembled as more tears rolled down her face. I didn't mean to spill it, she whispered, but Vanessa only smirked. Stay there until Miss Carter is satisfied. Emma looked around desperately. Daddy! Her soft cry barely escaped her lips. At that moment the glass doors of the mall slid open. A tall man walked inside. His clothes were simple, just a dark coat and jeans, but his presence carried a quiet authority that made people glance twice. His name was Daniel Hayes, and he had just returned to the city after 5 years overseas. Daniel scanned the mall casually as he walked forward, but suddenly something caught his attention. A crowd, and in the center of that crowd, his daughter. For a moment, his mind refused to process what he was seeing. His little girl, kneeling, crying. Daniel's footsteps stopped. The air around him seemed to freeze. His calm expression slowly disappeared, replaced by something far colder, something far more dangerous. He walked forward through the crowd, his voice low but firm. What is going on here? The crowd parted slightly as he approached. Emma looked up, and the moment she saw him, her eyes filled with relief. Daddy. She rushed to stand, but Vanessa suddenly stepped forward and pushed her shoulder. Did I say you could get up? Daniel's eyes darkened. He gently helped Emma to her feet and pulled her behind him. Then he looked directly at Vanessa. His voice was calm. Tokum, you made my daughter kneel. Vanessa rolled her eyes, clearly unimpressed. Control your kid, she said coldly. She ruined a $20,000 dress. Daniel looked down at the faint juice stain. Then he looked back at Vanessa. For a moment, he said nothing, but the silence itself felt terrifying. Finally, he spoke. 20,000. Vanessa smirked. That's right. Daniel nodded slowly. Gid. He pulled out his phone. Because at that moment, Vanessa had no idea. The man standing in front of her wasn't just a random father. He was the man who had quietly built the financial system. Behind half the city's corporations, someone had just humiliated his daughter. Daniel's voice was calm as he dialed a number. Prepare the documents, he said quietly. Across the city, several powerful executives suddenly received the same message. A corporate war was about to begin, and Vanessa had just made the worst mistake of her life. Chapter 2, The Man She Shouldn't Have Provoked. The mole had gone completely silent. The little girl clung tightly to her father's coat, her small hands trembling. Tears still ran down her cheeks, but the moment she saw him, she felt safe again. The arrogant assistant crossed her arms and scoffed. "So you're the father?" she said coldly. "Good. Then you should teach your daughter some manners." The father looked at his daughter first. "What happened?" he asked softly. The girl sniffed and wiped her eyes. I bumped into her. And the juice spilled," she said quietly. "I said sorry, but she told me to kneel and apologize properly." The father's eyes slowly lifted. His gaze landed on the assistant. Calm. Dumb. But that calmness made the air feel heavier. "You made my daughter kneel?" he asked. The assistant rolled her eyes. "She ruined a dress worth more than what you probably make in a year," she said proudly. "Kneeling is already being generous." Some people in the crowd frowned. Others whispered. But no one dared to interfere, because everyone knew who the assistant worked for. She was the personal assistant of the CEO of Aurora Group, one of the most powerful corporations in the city. The assistant smirked when she saw the man's simple clothes. "You should be grateful I'm not calling security," she continued. "Pay the compensation and leave." The father slowly took out a handkerchief and gently wiped his daughter's tears. "Don't cry," he told her quietly. Then he stood up. His tall figure suddenly felt imposing. Even the assistant unconsciously took a small step back. "Tell me," he said calmly, "how much is the dress?" The assistant laughed mockingly. "You afford it." She crossed her arms confidently. 300,000. Gasps rippled through the crowd. But the man didn't react. Instead, he simply nodded. "All right," he said. The assistant looked surprised for a moment. Then she sneered. "Good. Transfer the money now." The father slowly pulled out his phone, but instead of ovopep, he majakko. The assistant rolled her eyes again. "What?" Calling someone to borrow money. The father ignored her. The call connected almost instantly. His voice was calm. "Ask me." On the other side of the line, a respectful voice answered immediately. "Yes, sir." The father glanced once at the assistant. "Aurora Group," he said. A short pause. Then he spoke a single sentence that made the temperature in the mall seem to drop. "Start the acquisition." The assistant frowned. "What nonsense are you talking about?" The father ended the call. Then he looked at her. "You said the dress costs 300,000. He paused. "So I'll buy the company that pays your salary." The crowd froze. For a moment, no one breathed. Then the assistant burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha, by Aurora Group." She mocked loudly. "Do you even know its market value?" The father held his daughter's hand and turned to leave. Before walking away, he said one last sentence. By tomorrow morning, you won't have a job to go back to. For the first time, the assistant felt a strange chill run down her spine. And far away. In the top floors of Aurora Group headquarters. Emergency meetings were already being called. Something huge had just begun. Chapter 3. The First Crack in the Empire. The assistant's laughter still echoed across the marble floor of the mall long after. Ethan turned away with his daughter. Daddy, are we really going home? Lily asked softly, still holding the corner of his coat. Ethan looked down at her small face, her eyes still red from crying, his voice almost genial. Yes, sweetheart. But first, we're going to watch something interesting. Across the mall. The assistant Vanessa, heart was still bragging loudly to the surrounding crowd. Did you see his face? She scoffed. People like him think they can threaten my boss's empire with a phone call. The crowd slowly dispersed, but a few stayed, whispering. Everyone in the city knew Vanessa wasn't just any assistant. She worked directly under Isabella Vaughn, the CEO of Vaughn Group, one of the most powerful corporations in the region, and Vanessa loved reminding people of that. Security, she snapped. Make sure that man never enters this mall again. The guards nodded quickly, but before they could respond, Vanessa's boss, she rolled her eyes. Probably another supplier begging for a meeting. She answered lazily, yes. But the moment she heard the voice on the other end, her smirk faded. What do you mean the board is in an emergency meeting? The voice on the phone sounded urgent. Miso Harchi. Several major investors just withdrew their funding from Vaughn Group. Vanessa frowned. That's impossible. The voice continued. And 3 of our overseas partners just canceled their contracts. Vanessa's stomach tightened. Why? There was a pause. Then the answer came. They sighed. Another company just bought controlling shares in their businesses. Vanessa felt a strange chill. What company? The man hesitated. Crown Meridian Holdings. Vanessa's eyes widened. That name was legendary in the business world. A silent giant. A company so powerful it rarely appeared publicly but when it moved. Entire markets shifted. But why would they target Vaughn Group? She whispered. The man on the phone sounded panicked. That's what we're trying to figure out. Vanessa slowly lowered the phone. Her mind raced. Across the mall, Ethan was sitting calmly at a cafe table with Lily, helping her drink a milkshake. He looked completely relaxed. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. No way, she muttered. Her phone buzzed again. Another call. This time from the CEO's office. Her hands trembled slightly as she answered. Yes. The voice on the other side was cold. Vanessa. It was Isabella Vaughn. Vanessa straightened immediately. Miss Vaughn. I was just about to report. Where are you? Isabella interrupted sharply. At the Central Plaza Mall. There was a long silence. Then Isabella spoke again, her voice unusually tense. Tell me something honestly. Vanessa swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Did you offend someone today? Vanessa blinked. What? Because, Isabella continued slowly, someone just launched a full corporate takeover attempt against Vaughn Group. Vanessa's heart skipped. That's impossible. Isabella's next words made her blood run cold. The order came from Crown Meridian Holdings. Vanessa slowly turned her head. Across the mall cafe, Ethan was gently wiping whipped cream from Lily's cheek while smiling softly. For the first time, Vanessa felt fear. Because suddenly, the calm man she mocked earlier didn't look ordinary at all. Chapter 4. The Fall Begins. The cafe inside the shopping mall had suddenly grown very quiet. Vanessa Carter stood frozen, her phone trembling slightly in her hand. Just seconds ago she had been laughing loudly, enjoying the humiliation she had forced on a small girl and her father. Now, sweat slowly formed on her forehead. On the phone screen were dozens of notifications. Urgent. Vaughn Group stock plunges. Major partners cancel contracts. Global investment firms withdraw support. Her confident smile slowly disappeared. This must be a mistake, Vanessa muttered. Across the cafe, Ethan Blake calmly stirred his coffee, as if none of this concerned him. Lily sat beside him, happily eating a small strawberry cake. She looked up and whispered, "Daddy, why does that scary lady look like she's going to cry?" Ethan smiled softly and wiped cream from her cheek. "Because sometimes," he said gently, "people finally realize they made a very bad decision." At that moment, Vanessa's phone rang again. She answered instantly. "Hello?" The voice on the other side was panicked. "Miss Carter, the Vaughn Group headquarters just issued an emergency order. They want to know what happened at the Meridian Mall today." Vanessa frowned. What does a mall incident have to do with the company? Because the attack on Vaughn Group started 10 minutes after your confrontation there. Her heart skipped. That's impossible. Miss Carter, multiple international investment firms are targeting us. Crown Meridian Capital just bought controlling shares in 3 of our biggest partners. Vanessa slowly turned her head. Her eyes locked onto Ethan, the man she had mocked, the man she had humiliated, was calmly drinking coffee as if he had all the time in the world. Her breath grew heavier. No, it can't be. The employee on the phone continued frantically. Our lawyers are saying the attack is precise, like someone planned this for months. Whoever is behind this is extremely powerful. Vanessa's legs suddenly felt weak. She remembered Ethan's calm voice earlier. Sometimes adults need to learn manners the hard way. A terrible thought entered her mind. She slowly walked toward Ethan's table. Every step felt heavier than the last. People AROU, Undie the cafe watched quietly. The arrogant woman from earlier no longer looked powerful. She looked terrified. When she reached the table, Ethan didn't even look up. Mr. Blake. Vanessa stammered. Ethan finally lifted his eyes. They were calm, cold, and terrifyingly confident. Yes. Vanessa swallowed. Are you behind what's happening, too? Vaughn Group? Lily looked up curiously. Daddy, what's Vaughn Group? Ethan gently patted her head. Just a company that forgot how to behave. Vanessa's face turned pale. You can't do this. Vaughn Group is worth billions. Ethan leaned back in his chair. Son. The single word felt like a hammer hitting her chest. Then Ethan spoke quietly. You made my daughter kneel. The cafe air turned heavy. And for that, Ethan continued calmly. Your empire will kneel too. At that exact moment, Vanessa's phone rang again. She answered with shaking hands. Hello? The voice on the other side sounded even more desperate. Miss Carter, Vaughn Group just lost 40% of its value in 1 hour. Her hand dropped. The phone slipped from her fingers and crashed onto the marble floor. Vanessa Carter finally understood. The quiet man drinking coffee with his daughter. Was the storm destroying her world? Chapter 5. The Fall of an Empire. The cafe had gone silent. Vanessa's phone lay on the marble floor, its screen still flashing with the devastating news. Vanessa Holdings stock drops 38% in 1 hour. Major investors withdraw support. Regulatory investigation launched. Her hands trembled as she slowly looked up at Ethan, the calm man sipping coffee, the father whose daughter she had forced to kneel. Vanessa's voice cracked. "Why you? Did this?" Ethan gently placed his cup down. His expression was calm, almost indifferent. "I warned you," he said quietly. "Some people are not meant to be bullied." Vanessa's face turned pale. You're just a nobody," she shouted desperately. "How could you possibly destroy my company?" Achi, that moment the cafe doors suddenly opened. Several men in dark suits entered. Behind them was a woman in an elegant black dress. Her presence was powerful, and the entire cafe seemed to freeze when she walked in. Vanessa's eyes widened. "Madam." It was Olivia Grant, the CEO of Grant Global, the parent company that owned Vanessa Holdings. Vanessa rushed toward her like a drowning person grabbing a lifeline. "Madame Olivia, please help me. Someone is attacking the company." But Olivia didn't even look at her. Instead, she walked straight toward Ethan. Then something unbelievable happened. Olivia stopped in front of him and bowed slightly. "Sir," she said respectfully. The entire cafe gasped. Vanessa felt like her brain had stopped working. "Es ist sie," she whispered. Ethan calmly patted Lily's head. "Did you scare my daughter today?" he asked softly. Olivia's expression darkened. Her sharp gaze turned toward Vanessa. "What happened?" "She demanded." Vanessa stuttered. I didn't know she was his daughter. My assistant just." Before she could finish, Ethan spoke again. "She made my daughter kneel." The cafe went dead silent. Olivia's eyes instantly turned cold. She slowly turned to Vanessa. "Do you understand what you've done?" Vanessa shook her head wildly. "Madam, please." "I didn't mean." Olivia cut her off. From this moment, she said coldly, "Vanessa Holdings is removed from Grant Global's partnership." Vanessa felt the world collapse beneath her. That's impossible." But Olivia wasn't finished. "And your assistant," she added, "is blacklisted from the entire industry." Vanessa collapsed into a chair, her face completely drained of color. Everything was gone. Her company, her reputation, her future. All because she had humiliated a little girl. Meanwhile, Lily tugged on Ethan's sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered softly. "Yes?" "Are they in trouble because they were mean to me?" Ethan smiled gently. "Sometimes," he said, "people must face the consequences of their actions." Lily nodded thoughtfully. Then she happily returned to eating her cake. Ethan stood up and took his daughter's hand. Without another glance at Vanessa, he walked toward the exit. As the doors opened, sunlight poured into the cafe. Behind him, Vanessa's empire had already begun to crumble. And she finally understood one terrifying truth. The quiet father she mocked was someone she should have never provoked.